The house was too quiet. Rain tapped a slow, steady rhythm against the living room window as Isabel Carter sat alone, her fingers curled tightly around a lukewarm cup of tea. She hadn't moved from the couch in hours. Her late husband, Mark's flannel sweater clung to her shoulders, still faintly smelling of cedar and aftershave. It was the only thing in the room that felt remotely alive. The funeral had been 2 weeks ago, but time no longer moved in days or hours. It drifted in pauses, between phone calls that never came, footsteps that never echoed down the hall, and meals she forgot to eat. Mark Carter, her husband of 20 years, was gone. Cancer, quick and cruel, had taken everything. The man who once filled every corner of her world with laughter and warmth now existed only in framed photographs and unfinished mugs of coffee. She let her gaze wander to the dusty side table, where a photo of Mark and their son Ethan smiled up at her. It had been taken 5 years ago, before everything fell apart, before the diagnosis, before the hospital rooms, before she'd learned how loud loneliness could be. A door creaked upstairs. For a moment, her heart surged, an old, foolish reflex. But Ethan was already gone. He'd returned to college just a few days after the funeral, carrying his grief in silence. Isabel hadn't asked him to stay. She couldn't ask anything of anyone now. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A single text. "Hey, Mrs. Carter, I'll stop by later to check in. Let me know if you need anything. Logan." Logan Reed. Ethan's best friend since middle school. A polite, soft-spoken boy with a crooked smile and a gentle energy she'd always appreciated. He'd helped carry Mark's casket. He'd cried, tried to hide it, but she'd seen the redness in his eyes. She started to type a response. "No need, I'm fine," but stopped midway. Her fingers hovered, then fell away. She didn't delete the message, she just let the phone dim on its own. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped. The silence returned in its full weight, heavier than before. Isabel rose to put away the untouched tea when a soft knock startled her. She froze. Another knock, measured, familiar. She opened the door to find Logan standing there, slightly out of breath, a brown paper bag in his hands. His hoodie clung damply to his frame, and his eyes, green and kind, met hers. "Hi," he said quietly. "I brought you dinner. Hope that's okay." Isabel blinked. Her voice felt buried in dust. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Logan replied, stepping inside as she moved aside. "Ethan told me you haven't really been talking to anyone." She closed the door behind him, the click sounding too loud. "Ethan worries too much." He offered a small smile. "So do I." In the kitchen, she cleared a space on the counter while he unpacked the bag, pasta, bread, and a bottle of red wine that looked far too expensive for a college student. "I had help from my mom," he said, as if reading her thoughts. Isabel allowed herself a weak laugh. It cracked in the middle, but didn't break. They sat across from each other at the table. The food tasted like nothing, but she was grateful for the company. He filled the silence with stories. Funny. Things about Ethan at school, Mark's old advice that still echoed in his mind. She listened, occasionally smiling, sometimes nodding, always aware of how much her house had changed in his presence. When he finished his wine, he stood and said, "I'll take care of the dishes." "You don't have to," she said, but he was already rinsing plates with practiced care. When he was done, he leaned against the counter, drying his hands. "It's strange being here without him," Logan said softly. "He taught me how to tie a tie, you know? Right over there." Isabel looked at the corner he pointed to. Her throat tightened. "He taught you well." A pause stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just full. Then he turned toward the door. "I should let you rest." She nodded, following him slowly. As he reached the doorway, he looked back and added, "I'll check in next week, if that's okay." She didn't answer right away. The idea of his visits, of someone filling the silence, even briefly, suddenly felt like a lifeline, not a solution, but a breath. "That would be nice," she finally said. When the door closed behind him, she stood alone again, but the silence no longer felt as heavy. Logan returned on a Tuesday, unannounced this time, holding a small pot of daffodils. "Your porch looked a little empty," he said, offering it like an apology. Isabel didn't know why her eyes stung. Perhaps it was the yellow blooms, bright, hopeful, defiant. She accepted them with a nod and stepped aside. That visit was shorter. They sat on the porch. He talked, she mostly listened. He avoided the subject of Mark. She noticed. The next visit was Friday, then Monday, then Saturday again. No pattern, no expectations, just appearances, like patches of sunlight through cloudy days. His presence became something she looked forward to without admitting it. He brought groceries, fixed a broken cabinet hinge, reached the top shelf she'd stopped bothering with. He didn't pry, didn't ask personal questions, but she felt him noticing things, how she lingered on Mark's picture frames, how she avoided looking at her wedding ring. One afternoon, he stayed late. The sun dipped beyond the trees as they sat in the living room, the soft hum of the ceiling fan filling the space. Isabel had made tea stronger than usual. Logan sipped it with a grateful smile. "You always made better tea than Ethan's dorm," he said. "Low bar," she replied with a faint smirk. "I've seen what you boys call a kitchen." He chuckled, leaning back. "True, I think. We once tried to boil pasta in a coffee pot." She laughed, a full, rich sound that surprised them both. Her hand briefly touched his arm as she steadied her teacup, and neither of them moved away. The moment lingered. She noticed for the first time how much older he looked since high school. His jaw had sharpened, his voice deepened. He wasn't the boy who used to raid their fridge during sleepovers anymore. He was a man, and that realization unsettled her. She rose quickly. "I should get the laundry." He stood too, instinctively. "Let me help." In the hallway, they passed the family portrait that had hung untouched since the funeral. Mark's smile beamed down, frozen in time. Isabel slowed. Logan did too. "He loved that picture," she said softly. "I remember. He made us all. Take it twice because Ethan blinked the first time." Isabel laughed again, but it was tinged with sadness. He always wanted everything to be just right. "You still wear his ring?" Logan said, eyes flicking briefly to her hand. She looked down at it. "I don't know how to take it off," she admitted. "Not physically, just emotionally." "I get it," he murmured. "But you're still here." She met his gaze. There was no accusation in his words, just understanding, and maybe, just maybe, a question. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the echo of Logan's voice, chasing her thoughts. He had said so little, yet it stirred something long dormant inside her. Not desire. Not yet. Something gentler. The ache of being seen. By the time morning came, she had convinced herself it meant nothing. Grief played tricks. Loneliness wore disguises. But the next time he knocked, she answered faster. They spent that Saturday rearranging the attic. Dust, memories, and laughter mixed in the confined space. He found an old record player. She found a box of Mark's college notebooks and had to sit down. He handed her a glass of water without a word, then sat beside her quietly until her hands stopped trembling. Later, they played one of Mark's favorite records downstairs. The scratchy jazz notes filled the room like incense, familiar, mournful. Without thinking, Isabel stepped closer to Logan. They stood still, only inches apart. Her heart thudded, a warning and a longing at once. "Dance with me," she whispered. He hesitated, but only for a moment. Then he took her hand. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. It was a slow, silent dance in a dimly lit room where the only witness was the record player spinning time backward. When the song ended, so did the moment. She pulled away first, her breath caught. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" he asked gently. But she didn't answer. Instead, she turned off the record and reached for the light switch. Darkness swept across the room, cloaking the truth neither of them was ready to speak. The following week passed with a nervous kind of quiet, one not caused by grief, but by the tension of something unspoken. Isabel busied herself with things she used to ignore. She cleaned out drawers. She baked muffins she didn't eat. She even rearranged the living room furniture, hoping that by shifting her surroundings, she might also shift the feelings growing inside her. But nothing changed. Logan didn't visit that week, and she didn't text him. Whether it was restraint or fear, she couldn't say. All she knew was that her home, briefly warm again, had grown cold once more. The silence, once comforting, now scraped at her nerves. On Friday evening, the doorbell rang. Her heart stuttered before her feet moved. When she opened the door, there he was, Logan, standing in the fading sunlight with that same uncertain look in his eyes. "I brought wine," he said, lifting the bottle slightly. She hesitated. "You didn't have to." "I know," he replied, "but I wanted to." She stepped aside. They drank in the kitchen. This time the air between them was less tentative. Words came slowly, but they came. She told him about how Mark used to hum in the shower. He told her how much Ethan still missed his father, but didn't know how to say it aloud. They didn't talk about the dance. But the memory hung there, flickering like the candle she'd lit on the counter. A small flame, steady, yet vulnerable. After dinner, they lingered in the hallway near the family photos again. Logan looked at a picture of Ethan in Little League, laughing mid-swing. "You raised a good man," he said. Isabel smiled softly. "He takes after his father." "Not entirely," Logan said. Then quietly, "You were always the heart of this house." The words landed with weight, not flattery, not idle comfort. A truth she hadn't heard in years. She looked at him. Really looked. He was no longer Ethan's teenage friend in her eyes. He was a man who had carried grief beside her, who had stepped into the cracks and filled them without asking anything in return. Her voice trembled. "I don't know what we're doing." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I don't think it's wrong to want something again. Even if it is complicated. Especially then." He stepped closer. Isabel didn't move. She should have. She should have said something to end it, to stop whatever was about to happen. But instead, when he leaned in, she met him halfway. The kiss was soft, hesitant, nothing urgent. Only the slow, sad acknowledgement of two lonely people clinging to warmth. His hands never wandered. He treated her like something fragile, not broken. And when they finally pulled apart, she didn't feel guilt. She felt relief and confusion. She stepped back first, breaking the silence. "This can't happen again," she whispered. "I understand," Logan said, though his eyes told a different story. One of hope, of longing, of something forming he couldn't yet name. He left soon after. No drama, no anger, just a quiet goodbye and a pause that stretched too long at the door. That night, Isabel stared at the ceiling once more, but this time, she wasn't thinking about Mark. She was thinking about what her life had become, what it might be becoming. Could she mourn and still move forward? Was loving again, eventually tentatively, a betrayal? The questions clawed at her. By Sunday, she had made a decision. She called Ethan. "Hey, Mom," he answered, cheerful but distracted. "Everything okay?" "Yes," she lied. "I just wanted to hear your voice." They talked briefly. She asked about his classes. He asked about the garden. Neither mentioned Logan. After she hung up, she stared at her phone. She knew it wasn't sustainable. If something was to grow from this strange connection with Logan, it couldn't be secret. Not for long, not with Ethan in the middle. The following morning, as the sun broke through the clouds, she sat by the window with her tea. No longer lukewarm, but steaming hot, fresh. She was not ready to make a choice yet. But she was no longer pretending there wasn't one to make. And somewhere down the road, something, heartache or healing, waited.